name of the workshop today is basic training plan structure. We're also going to talk about in general how muscle grows and what we need to focus on there. So we're going to talk about what really creates muscle, the science behind gains, and what you specifically should be doing in order to maximize them, how food plays a role, and also training for optimal results, how to work out effectively. So that way you're not just doing what a lot of people do is like, I work out all the time, I'm doing stuff, but I'm not seeing the results. So how to work out effectively so that way you're actually moving forward here. So a lot of this is very loaded content, and I've done trainings on a lot of these things individually. So if you want like the more broken down version, I can always find that recording and send it to you. So I'm going to kind of breeze through some of these that might sound like slightly more complicated concepts because they may be. Now, when it comes to building muscle, the science says that it's a combination of your food and your training, of course. Now with food, it's energy balance as well as food quality. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec, but in general, that means eating enough of the right stuff. Not just eating enough or not just eating the right stuff, but eating enough of the right stuff. And then when it comes to working out, it depends on our exercise selection. So training, so that way we achieve all three: volume, load, and effort, which in short just means performing the right workouts in the right way. So let's first talk about the nutrition part of this. And a lot of it, many people come back to like protein when it comes to building muscle. So when it comes to building muscle, it's going to come down to energy balance and food quality, which I just mentioned a second ago. But how much food are you actually eating? Not just how much food, I'm sorry, how much energy are you taking in from your food? And is it in line with the amount of energy that you're spending? Some people can eat so healthy, but if it is still more than the energy that they're using, they're still going to have a surplus, right? So you might be eating amazingly, perfectly, beautifully structured meals, but if you're not burning all of that energy, it can still absolutely turn to body fat. And vice versa. If let's say you are eating gorgeous food, but you're not eating enough, that's also going to get in the way of your ability to grow muscle. Now, something that not enough people in the fitness world talk about is the quality of the food that you're eating. A lot of it is just hitting calories, hitting macros. And in a sense, like macros became popular because it was called the flexible dieting approach, where people believe they can eat pizza and ice cream and just eat all kinds of craziness, but as long as it fit into these magical little macro numbers, that it would be fine. And they would achieve, in a sense, the same results as someone who's eating really healthy food. And that's not the case. The quality of your food is not only important in your ability to build muscle, but it's important in recovery. It's important in all aspects of our health as well. So making sure that your body is getting the nutrients that it needs in order to create muscle as well. So let's talk about energy needs, because this one is what can feel very complicated for people. It's like, well, how do I know how much energy that I need? And thankfully for you, you don't have to guess. There's actually a calorie calculator that I really love from the Precision Nutrition website. If you type in, actually it's down here, it might be really hard to see, but it's basically precisionnutrition.com/nutrition-calculator. And what I like about it is it takes into account more than just your weight, your height, your gender, and your age. So it asks you different things like, what's your goal weight? Where do you want to be? What's your activity like? How active are you at work? How active are you in your workouts? Like, just it takes a lot of factors into play when it creates a calorie goal. Now, something to remember, just because a calculator on the internet says that you should be eating, let's say 2000 calories, does not necessarily mean that that is the end all be all. At the end of the day, these calorie calculators are just using formulas based on averages, meaning the average woman who is your weight, your height, your size, everything should eat around this amount. So it's okay that if, let's say, a tracker says you should eat this much, it's okay to tweak it if you're finding that different things work differently for you. At the end of the day, our bodies are all different, and that is so okay. One thing to consider here is when you are using calorie track or calorie calculators, it can be really easy to get into this mindset of wanting to be super ambitious, right? Like it says, okay, well, what's your goal weight? And let's say we're at 150 and we're like, ooh, I want to get to 130 in 10 weeks, because it'll ask you what time frame, what weights. And sometimes people can get very, very ambitious, and then your calorie goal comes out and it's like, okay, well then you need to eat 900 calories, because at the end of the day, the calculator is just there to run numbers. It's not there to say, okay, what's actually healthy? Is this too low? Is this going to throw off your hormones? So I want to discourage you from creating these like really crazy scenarios of weight loss or gain or whatever, and you want to stick as close to your maintenance calories as you can. I hope that makes sense. So that's kind of why on the first bullet here, it says determine your maintenance calories. Now, obviously, you being here, we do this for you, so you don't have to really do this yourself. This is just so you understand the work that goes on behind the scenes of when we do this for you. And then you also want to determine if you need to be in a calorie deficit. Depending on your goals, is a deficit the smartest thing for you to do? If your goal is to build muscle, in many cases, a deficit is not the smartest thing to do, because we are going to slow down that progress. The beauty of building and having more muscle on your body, it makes an environment to burn more fat. A body with more muscle naturally burns more fat. So if your goal is to eventually burn more fat, you're not hindering that by staying around maintenance or putting yourself in a position to build muscle, because a more muscular body will eventually burn more fat off. And when we put ourselves in a deficit, it can just affect other things too, depending on how severe the deficit is. So just know, for most people, the goal should be to build muscle. And being around maintenance is a great way to do a little bit of both at the same time. Now, it also depends how aggressively you want to go. If you want to go aggressive muscle gain, it might have you eating more calories. If you want to go moderate muscle gain, so you're also making sure you're losing fat in the process, you may want to stick closer to maintenance, or maybe just a hair under maintenance. And by the way, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, because if I don't see questions, I'm just assuming it all registers, okay? Now let's talk about training, because over on this page, we cover energy balance and food quality. And now let's talk about exercise selection, because obviously your training has a lot to do with the muscle that you build. Now, at the end of the day, our body creates muscle to better support us in our endeavors. So let's say you have a job that's very strenuous, like you're picking up heavy objects a lot. And let's say your first week, you're like, oh my gosh, this is really hard for me to pick up. Your body is going to see that like opportunity. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, I need to be stronger because she's needing to pick up heavy objects. So your body gets like this trigger, like, hey, get stronger, build more muscle. So as we tear down our muscles by overexerting ourselves, by picking things up or just doing things that are not natural for us, let's say even something like running, your body will react to that stimulus and be like, oop, noted, I'm going to come back, make sure I'm stronger for the next time you do this run. That's a whole point of, that's a whole, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? That's why muscle is built. Your body's just kind of coming through to better support you, whatever it is you want to do. So when it comes to training, we want to focus on volume, load, and effort. Volume basically just means total sets per muscle group over a given period of time. How much of each workout, how much of each set are you doing? Load is the amount of weight and resistance during each workout. And then effort is your personal ability. So these kind of come through to make this like little trio, right? How much are you doing? How much weight and how much effort is it costing you? These things are important to note when you are doing your training, because most people break down their training plan before they actually work with a coach, I want to say, or some coaches might even do this too. Their workouts look something like this. They're doing about 20% of their workouts being upper body. They're doing like the greater half of being just miscellaneous lower body workouts, like band workouts, or maybe some goblet squats or leg extensions. And they're doing about 20% of their workouts as abs. So when it comes to volume, the lucky number, the magic number is 16. And I'll explain what that means. You want to exercise each muscle group approximately 16 sets per muscle group per week. So this isn't necessarily important for you to know unless you are creating your own training plans. But this is a way for us to effectively and evenly basically build muscle everywhere. This is why we do total body days too, because it's basically guaranteeing you're getting all 16. And it's also just more efficient, in my opinion. I like total body. So volume, 16 sets per muscle group is really where we want to be. Now you can, depending on the person, you can give or take a couple as well. Like it's not like this is like a hard number here. And that's why the way that we do your training plan is it's kind of 50-50, right? Not literally 50-50. We're more like 60-40 because majority of everyone here does want to have some focus on their lower body. So we tend to do more like 60-40, compound upper body and compound lower body. And then the ab workouts pretty much take care of themselves, because as you're picking up weight on a deadlift or a squat or an assisted pull-up, you're training your core more than you think. So we try to just hit everything pretty evenly, as well as hit this number here. So that covers volume. Any questions there? Okay. Now, when it comes to load, this is the amount of weight and resistance in each workout. Now, some people think our workout is only effective if we have a ton of weight. And then others are the opposite. They think their workout is only effective if they're doing lower weight, body weight HIIT workouts. And I want to mention that every type of training style has a place in our training plan, and it can be equally effective. We just don't want to lean only on one and completely get rid of the other two. We want to have a little bit of all of it. And I'm not saying HIIT, because as you guys know, I don't really do a lot of HIIT workouts. Like Amanda, sometimes you'll ask for supersets or stuff like that, and we don't mind doing that. But as long as we're not leaning only on one side and we have a little bit of all of it. So notice, like when we're doing, let's say, lateral raises, I'm not asking you guys to pick up like 50-pound weights. In that type of workout, it's very appropriate to have lighter weights, maybe 5, 7, 10, 12-pound dumbbells, which is considered lighter. Whereas if we're doing a deadlift, then you want to definitely stack the weight on, so that way you can make sure that you train the lower body effectively. So just know that there's not just one way to train. It's not like heavy or nothing. It's also not light or nothing. And it's also not happy medium or nothing. Every bit has its place. Some workouts should be super heavy. Some workouts should be light, higher reps, and it's all going to be effective. Now, as you guys kind of take a look at your own training plan, you'll see that we kind of sprinkle in a little bit of all of it. And then effort just comes down to how much of your ability are you using. So obviously, the bigger the lifts require more effort from you. And then the smaller lifts require less effort. So we want to make sure that the bigger lifts obviously take more of your effort. Now, this is where I can see, like, if people plateau in their journey, is they're doing big lifts with little weights and minimal effort. And then they wonder why it stops working. Like, how come I'm doing deadlifts? How come I'm doing squats? I'm doing all these workouts and it's not really getting me anywhere? Because they have limited their effort. They're not doing as best as they can. They're not adding on more weight. They're not pushing themselves past the point of their current abilities. So having a mixture of all types of effort is needed, because obviously, like, if you do 100 banded squats, like, even if you do a bunch of them, it's not like your max effort, right? And that's okay. So when we build out training plans and when we're focusing on muscle growth, we combine volume, load, and effort. And typically that's why a lot of your training plans, of course, it can be a little different depending on the individual and your individual goals, but generally our training plans look something like this, where we have some compound movements, like let's say a deadlift, and then some pull downs, and maybe throw in some squats, some bench press or dumbbell presses, and then a plank. So some of you are like, how come they're so short? Or how come there's not like more to it? Why don't I have like circuits and jump workouts and HIIT workouts and stretching and band workouts and all of this stuff? And we purposely keep it quite simple because I want you to have a lot of energy in the tank to do these bigger lifts, like military presses, like leg presses, like hip thrusts. So sometimes we get caught up by doing too much cardio in the beginning, too much stretching, too much little work, and we get in the way of the big work. Where in reality, what's going to create the best results as far as muscle growth and fat loss, the best way to do that is the big lifts, like the deadlifts, like the squats, like the presses, like the assisted pull-ups or unassisted, like the hip thrusts, like the lunges, like the presses. Those are the things that are going to make you a lean bean and a strong lean bean. So we want to keep these at like the center of our focus, because these are not only going to require a lot of your effort, but also they require a lot of the load and different things. So we want to keep the focus here. And then if you want to add accessories after this, we could. And that's why we collaborate with each of you individually. Like if you want something a little bit harder, you want to add in some cardio after, we definitely do that. But we want to keep the workouts focused on these things because this is what's going to create the most efficient results. And then of course it goes without saying. Now I know both of you that are on this call right now already know this, but just knowing that results are not linear. So we can be doing all of the right things and our bodies will naturally find ways to plateau. And it's not a bad thing. Our body, its number one goal a lot of the time is to seek balance. So make sure that you are healthy and balanced and safe at all times. So sometimes when it gets used to us doing similar types of activities and eating in similar ways, it will find a balance and we may not see the same progress that we saw when we first started. And that's so okay because things do pick back up. So just know that takes time. You got it. You can get there. But that's pretty much it for our workshop today. I know that there are a lot of individual components here that we probably could talk for a long time about, but just for the sake of time and making this workshop digestible, I don't want to go like super deep into every single little subject, but in the end, I just hope that you know that when it comes to achieving results, it's going to come down to these things. Your energy balance, making sure you're eating the right amounts, and your food quality, making sure that you're eating the right stuff. You're not kind of filling your diet with supplements, powdered products, fake meats, things like that, making sure you're eating quality food. And then it's going to come down to your exercise selection, is making sure that you are taking into account your volume, load, and your effort. Making sure that you're not just working one muscle group a ton, like doing a ton of glute workouts or a ton of hamstring workouts and neglecting everything else, making sure that you're playing around with different variations of weight. You're not just doing like super lightweight or only doing heavyweight and kind of putting a mixture of all of it, and that you're always putting in as much effort as you can. Any questions? Are we good?
When we talk about like being in a deficit or eating more and stuff, like how do you know when like you should do what? I mean, I guess it just depends on like.
It depends on where you want to go. What do you want to do? So, and that's something I should mention too, is our fitness journeys are always in seasons, right? Like sometimes we might be in a season of like, I just want all of the strength gains and I want to be very aggressive with this goal. And I'm okay with maybe adding on a little bit of body fat so I can really be focused on muscle gains. Then that can be like the initiative for that few months, right? And then you can always change your mind at that point and be like, okay, I've built a lot of muscle. Now I want to trim down, but I don't want to trim down too much. And I want to make sure I can preserve this muscle. So that will affect what your calorie goal should be at that point. So it's just dependent on where you want to go and where you are in that moment. If you're kind of like really enjoying where you're at and you just want to make subtle changes, like maybe you want to see a little more strength here, maybe you want to improve performance here. It just really depends on what you want to do. But the best bet for almost everyone is to stick to your maintenance, because this will put you in a position where muscle building is possible. Whereas if it's too low, again, it just might not happen. And then by default, a more muscular body is going to be burning more fat. So we're going to lean out. Now, some people like, I don't want to lean out. I want to have a little bit of curve. I want to have a little bit of thickness. I don't want to lean out. Then maybe you want to keep the calories a little bit higher than maintenance. So it just depends. No matter what, though, whether you are wanting to lose body fat or gain muscle, the variation in calories should be small. So like, let's say you're like, okay, I've been in this muscle building phase. I've been so focused on building muscle. I've built a lot of muscle. I've toned out a bit, but now I want to get maybe a little bit more aggressive with body fat loss. People want to drop their calories down by like 500. And that's just way too aggressive of a change. When you're making changes, you only want to change it about 75 to 100 calories at a time. And you want to stick there for a couple of weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, and let your body adjust to that change. So that way it's not like jolting it into anything crazy. Sometimes we make changes too fast and our body is like, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's like trying desperately to balance you out. And sometimes it leads to results that we didn't want. So the best way to do it is to experiment, like especially Amanda with you, is seeing how you feel with a slow and gradual increase or decrease. And analyzing those results, because again, these calculators can only take you so far. They're here to give you average. It's here to basically put these numbers through an equation and come out with numbers based on averages. But at the end of the day, you want to figure out how your body feels with this change. There was a point in time in my own fitness journey where I was eating above 2000 calories and I was like the leanest I had been in a really long time. But at the time, my lifestyle was very active. I was like super active in my days. I was like going really, really heavy in the gym. I wasn't really traveling at all. So I didn't have any interruptions in my regimen. But like right now, if I were to eat 2000 plus calories, like I would definitely gain weight. So it just depends. It's going with the ebbs and flows of your life and, figuring out what you want in that moment. Ideally, you don't want to change the calories too often. Like people get kind of impatient and like, oh, I'm gonna switch it again. I'm gonna switch it again. Like, so every few weeks they're switching them again. And it's not like in an organized fashion. It's one thing if you're switching it to get to like one end result, but people get impatient, like, oh, no, this isn't working. I'm gonna bring them back down. This isn't working. I'm gonna bring them back up. So just like committing to a process and committing to it taking, let's say, a few months of occasional like tweaks, and not letting your mindset get in the way of like, no, it's not working, you're not doing anything, like it's not helping, just switch it, just write it out and see how it feels.
Okay.
That was a long-winded answer.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's a lag time too, and everyone's body, of course, is different, but just because we make a change in our calories doesn't mean it's going to change things instantly physically. Especially talking about how we had that workshop, I want to say a couple months ago now, about realistic timeframes for muscle growth and fat loss. The more advanced you are, the slower the progress. And that's like sometimes a tough pill for us to swallow, but our bodies are so used to this stimulus of training and eating a certain way that, it's kind of found its balance here. It's found its like happy place. And it's going to take time and patience and love for us to kind of unstick from this spot, but our bodies will find a way that it likes. It's going to be, ooh, okay, like for example, mine is like right around 126. I can change all kinds of things, and it's going to want to do everything it can to stay here at 126. Like it can be frustrating, but also we have to understand, like after a certain point, we just need so much love and patience, because it takes time for us to change,
Yeah.
letting it take time. Any other questions? Okay. I will actually drop the link to this Canva presentation in our group chat, because I feel like this is a good like addition to the training itself, especially if you want to like, pull the website for the calculator here. Just know that while you are here, we do this for you. But if you ever want to like check it out and just kind of play around with it, I welcome you to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, and this is also a reminder too. We're pretty good at like sensing when things in your lives change, or like catching up with you to make sure that we are always up to date on what's going on. But if y'all ever have any kind of life changes, whether it be job changes or just things in your life change, like please let us know, because in many cases it will affect your energy needs. Like if you're going from working at home and now you're going back into the office or back into the field or whatever, that will change your energy needs. So please let us know if things change, so we can make sure we help you adjust accordingly.